All right, everybody, please take your seats. We are going to get started again with our next panel. That includes everybody in the back. I'm going to start saying names shortly. And his name's Ryan Hicks. We're taking a seat. There he is. He's paying attention. And his name is also Jake Fishman. Please take a seat. All right, everybody, please quiet down. We are going to get started with our next panel. You never know how many times I have to say this until they listen. All right, folks, thank you very much. Very, very excited for our next panel today. So we are going to get into a topic that is kind of adjacent to what we just discussed, which I think is good. There's a lot to the fact of what Catherine's going to get into here, but before I do, everybody please raise their hands. Who listened to me say that the shirts are in the back but didn't get one yet but wants one? Amazing, that's a lot of people. Please make sure to get that at some point. They are the best. Additionally, bags. If you guys are going to be hungover tomorrow morning, please also get those. Trust me, it is very helpful. So, okay, with that, I am going to hand it over to Catherine, and we are going to get started with the next panel.
Thank you. I am Catherine. I am with Franchise Fractionals. We are a network connecting brands to fractional leaders. And I'm excited to host this panel. We're going to be talking about attracting and finding superstar employees. I have some fantastic stories. Well, I don't have stories. They have stories. They have some fantastic stories to share with you guys that hopefully you can take a few nuggets back. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. Jamie?
Hello, friends. I'm Jamie Stigliano. I'm the founder and CEO of Diva Dance. Our mission is to change lives by inspiring confidence and building community. We just happen to do that through super fun, all levels dance choreography classes for adults.
Hey, good morning. My name is Jared Cohen. I'm Chief Operating Officer of Protein Bar and Kitchen, a protein-focused, better-for-you, fast casual restaurant. 15 locations, most of which are within a few blocks here in Chicago. We just started franchising in the last year, so a lot of emerging stories to tell.
Awesome. Hello, I'm Charles Kaiser, multi-unit franchisee. Have had brands in the past for 15 years of Little Caesars. Currently have Sport Clips haircuts, OxyFresh carpet cleaning in a joint venture with Ideal Image Medical Spas, and been in franchising since 2005, so almost 20 years.
I didn't mention my brand size. Would you let me do that? Sure. I didn't drop my credentials. I should do that. I have 47 units, mostly all in the U.S. except for one. We just launched in Mexico City in the last month. So, Ms. Worldwide.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Okay, so before we can start talk about attracting superstar employees, we have to talk about the buzzword of 2023, which was culture, right? And these guys have some actual actionables that they implement in their brands that actually speak to how do you build a culture that superstar employees can thrive in, because before you can attract them, you have to have something to keep them. So Jamie, let's start with you. You had some great insights on connecting to your brand's bigger why, and you did that through the interview process. And so I'd love for you to share more about that.
Yeah, well, I think it starts with when you introduce your brand. It's kind of like how I did. You talk about your mission. So I don't just lead with we're dance choreography classes for adults. I lead with my mission is to change lives. And we know that dance classes can do that. And so really I lead with that with any potential franchisee, any potential worker that we might put in our team at any level that they're going to be at. So they have to buy into that mission. And the majority of my brand is younger. And so they absolutely have to have a connection to purpose and a connection to the value set of the brand, and they have to know what their role is in direct correlation to furthering the mission.
Love it. And Jared, you have a great background, right? Coming from McDonald's, going into Protein Bar. When you're interviewing candidates that are coming into your system, how do you ensure that the culture fit is going to be the right one as you bring them in?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question for us. And I'd say When we are talking to people, we want them to understand that Protein Bar and Kitchen is a different kind of fast casual restaurant company. We are kind of a unique brand in Better For You, in that our brand is very assertive, very enthusiastic, very high energy, not necessarily the same type of experience or environment you might get in the restaurant space. And so throughout the interview process, we're really looking for those type of demonstrations from our candidates. I'd say the way we filtered this out and cascaded it through the team is really kind of codifying that. And it was what we call our vision, vibe, and values. And we've set a series of cultural markers that we really look for and really test for, from the entry-level team member all the way up through the general manager and corporate employees when they're interested in joining Protein Bar and Kitchen. One of them, just as an example, is the concept of a fast sweeper. So if you were to give someone in a restaurant a broom and just told them to sweep the floor, are they going to sweep slowly, or are they going to move with purpose? And just the nature of the experience we want to provide to all of our customers is one of that enthusiastic, high-energy approach to help you eat better, live better, work better. And so that, I'd say, filters through our corporate team to our general managers and influences our interview process so that we can hopefully select the right candidates who are demonstrating that.
And I'm so glad that you said that. Coming up, my career came up through hospitality, and we had the pick up the trash test. So if you were walking through a room and you had a random piece of trash and you didn't pick it up, you weren't looked upon very favorably by the GM.
You were trash.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Charles, I would love for you to bring into this conversation, not only do you kind of filter in the values of the brand, but you've cultivated your own values and building your own team as a franchisee. So I'd love your point of view on this.
Yeah, the bigger why is important to talk about. As you mentioned, it was to allow them to connect to something, but it gets rooted a little deeper than that for us. Talking about the bigger why really takes away from the individual. It's not about them, it's about the why. And not just the why, so when you bring it back to the team, it's really about the team over them. And while we support every individual and they feel supported within the organization, at the end of the day, the team or the store or the unit or the territory that we have of our brands, the success of that is the most important thing. And so what I'm really grateful for is the fact that we have cultivated a culture where it's really about the selfless giving towards the organization and to the mission that we do, and a lot less about the internal snipping of, jockeying for this spot and so forth. And I'll talk more about that with regards to promoting and as we get into more about the retaining and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of the catalyst we use off of the bigger why.
Thank you. And Jared, I wanted to pick your brain on this question. So Protein Bar has been around for 12 years, you said?
We're actually celebrating our 15th birthday on the 16th, so this week.
Amazing, congratulations.
Birthday cake shakes for anyone here who wants to come with me on a
Yes.
break.
Okay. We'll be lining up in the back. So you've been in business for 15 years, just started franchising. As you look to franchise and grow, my question for you is, how do you balance the need for outside talent to come in and provide that outside expertise while you wanting to promote your superstars from within? Kind of how do you approach that?
Well, I'd say it's a balance, but I think in our organization we kind of over-rotate towards building from within. And the organization I came from, McDonald's, is one that's famous for that and almost did too much of that. I think striking the right balance can be a really big challenge. I think you have to debate the push-pull of, we want to build internal culture, we want to make sure people see a path for their expanded growth, expanded roles, expanded development, but at the same time, there are certain areas where you're going to need some specific functional expertise, some specific domain knowledge, and bring someone in from the outside. I'd say for a lot of our operational roles, we probably spend a lot more time promoting from within, because you've grown up through the restaurants in our case, and you know the systems, you know the processes, and you know what we're going to be growing and franchising. But then as we think about new functional areas where we need specific domain knowledge, we probably lean more towards external. So Jimmy McFeeters, who's sitting right over there and leads franchising for us, that's something we didn't know how to do internally. We went out and found an expert and brought him in and to the team to complement what we already have.
Awesome, thank you. And Jamie, same question to you as you look at expanding beyond, your 47 locations. You're hitting a transition point for your brand, and we've been through that. I've been through that before, and it can be challenging. So how do you contain and cultivate your superstars, but with the recognition that who got you here is not going to take you there?
Oh, I love the way you put that because that's absolutely what we're thinking about right now. I love the recommendation from earlier about putting your top performers on a board and then studying them. And for me, that's the folks who truly, my franchisees, by the way, who truly embody inspiring confidence and building community, and also they're amazing business owners from just business acumen. They know how to market, they know how to be the mayor of their community. I love that phrase. And so definitely for us, it's not enough to just be values aligned. It has to come with that business acumen for franchisees. And on the worker side, because we have quite a few contractors in addition to employees, so I just refer to them as our workers for this conversation, it's demonstrating that they know how to put the values in action. And we help them with that. We show them these are our values and here's what it looks like, so that it's not just talking points and it's not a marketing campaign, it's a way of life. So that's a really important distinction. But I love the way you phrased that question about what got us here and what will get us there. And it will really be that profiling, especially on my franchisees, of who's not just values aligned and they really kill it from that perspective, but they have that business acumen to support it. So that's who I'm looking for.
Well, and I love that you took it to the franchisees, because a lot of times when we talk about, who's going to get you there or who got you here is not going to get you there, we're talking about that internal piece, but it's really the franchisees that are going to get you to the next place. So,
well, and we've elevated some of my franchisees to supporting with HQ. It's been great. One of my top franchisees, she helps me with Fran Dev. She has an extensive sales background. Before she became a franchise owner, she's been my owner of the year twice. She knows how to build culture. She knows how to speak on behalf of the brand. She's just fantastic. She's got it. And so I love having her help take people through that process.
Awesome. Thank you. Charles, can you tell us more? You referenced your retention activities that you do within your organization, and I think that lots of us have faced some hiring challenges, specifically in the last 2 years, specifically in the industries that you operate in, and I'd love to hear more about how you've overcome them through retention. It's not just about in the quantity of candidates that you're getting. You're really focused on who do you have and how do you get the most out of them.
Yeah, I mean, to us, it really comes down to the amount of training that's put into place, and that's a very obvious thing to say, but the company's got to live it and do it every single day. And so that starts with the onboarding, that starts with the part of the recruitment, that's the education process about communicating back and forth if you're going to even come in for an interview. And then through the orientation, a lot of our brands, they're going to meet other team members to make sure it's a good fit. And it's really well explained that if they come into the organization, we're going to pour a ton of resources in. So one of our things is that it's our responsibility to present the information to make sure that you are able to understand it. Like, if you don't understand it, it's your responsibility to say, I don't understand, and we've got to be able to communicate it differently to do so. And over-developing has just been something that's been ingrained in it. I can tell you, one of the things that burnt me so bad was hotel restaurant management was my major in college. And so I had to get an internship. And so I became in the banquet department for one of the hotels in town. And it just happened to be one night, because it was really poorly ran. They said, hey, we got an event. There's only a few people coming. Can you run the bar? Never been a bartender before. And I go behind the bar. Well, the few people was 100 people for this event. And it was just me. And the guy's like, you'll be fine. They're all going to just want beer. That's not what they wanted. And I realized that night, I am so much better on the other side of the bar drinking than on that side of making the drinks. It was
Where are those agree cards?
Yeah. It was a horrible experience for me. And that was one of the things that set the foundation to say, I just won't do that to other people. And so, when we hire someone in, we really make that commitment that we're going to train them really well. It comes the other way, though. I mean, if they're not engaged and they're not putting the same effort in, they're gone really quick, because we're going to pour tons of resources in to make sure that they're taken care of. And just that relationship so happens to be we have really high retention. And it's just that forming the clarity, pointing in the direction that we're going, And then they see the reality that, well, they said it would be this, and as I'm going down the field, it actually is that. And when those things connect, they're like, I really like this place. And then, within your sector as a franchisee, within your brand, in terms of recruiting and stuff, there becomes a bit of a halo effect to that. And so you have referrals that come in from your current employees, and you're doing a great job when you have referrals coming in from your past employees when they've left and they said, you need to go work for these guys. So those are the things that we kind of measure. That's not like an actual retention number, but just kind of the things that are happening out there, abstract, that we do. And the other piece I'd say why it's been such a passion to make sure that we overdevelop people inside the company is, Little Caesars was our first brand. And the first grand opening of the first location was really good. Weren't prepared for it in the least and had to work the store. And it got stuck on the register multiple times, having to ring people up. And that was like the last place I wanted to be, And so I always kind of view it as every person we can train to be really good at what they do is a further step away from having to get inside the operations that I got to be. And so
I love that.
it comes from a place of like being scared.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be there. I want to be back here and making some decisions. So the only way to earn that is to make sure that you properly develop people to handle that.
What I love about that too is the patience that you've put into the overdevelopment, right? The person coming into your organization isn't developed yet. And so you have a system where you are developing them to what you need them to be.
It is patience, but when you really do it, you just find that their engagement in return, what they'll put back into the company, it's a no-brainer.
One thing just tactically I'd love to add to that is we just do lunch and learn, in terms of my HQ employees, and then in addition to the staff that works for my franchisees, we do lunch and learns, just professional development things, and I don't even pay speakers to come in and do them. I will facilitate them, or a member of my team will facilitate them, and I'll usually do it based on like a book summary or just to create that dialogue, because a lot of the folks coming in don't have leadership training. I mean, most leaders don't have leadership training. You learn to be a leader by leading.
On the job, yeah.
And so, and something I really talk to my whole team about is that we're all leaders because leaders have influence, and we all have influence. So we do a ton of just lunch and learn professional development. Again, you don't need a big budget to do it. It's on the calendar. My whole team loves it. They get excited about it. We offer a different kind of lunch and learn out to franchisee staff. Because I'm not afraid of the whole joint employer thing. I feel like, I'm not telling them how to do their job, but I do think I have a responsibility and an opportunity to create professional development for those folks, because those are my future franchise owners. So we do, as an HQ, provide professional development opportunities to my franchisees' teams.
Awesome. Thank you. Another question for you guys. So we talked a lot about kind of what you're doing right. I'd love to hear about what are some of the challenges that you've had in developing people internally, and or maybe kind of the lessons you learned before you got to a place where, hey, I've got the momentum going and I'm in a good place to get these employees where I need them to be. And I don't know if we talked about this in our pre, so I'll Jared, it looks like you have something.
I just figured I hadn't talked in a while, so I was going to throw something out there. I think in terms of some of the, I wouldn't call it necessarily mistakes that we've made as we're thinking about developing our people and retaining our people, promoting our people. I'd say oftentimes our capacity for development can be tested and can be reduced. When we're looking at our store operations, when we're looking at our teams, our attention tends to go right for the red on the scorecard, right for problem areas, right where things we need to fix. And I'd say historically, we have occasionally misallocated our time to those areas that need triage, and we have not served the people who are running the stores really well. Because we may look at a scorecard and be like, oh man, that's all green. I don't have to think about that this month. And it's like, well, that's not great, because that person is they may be looking for the next challenge, they may be looking for the next role in the company. Where can they continue to grow their career? And if you spend all your time focusing on kind of the negativity bias side of the ledger, you're not going to give that person what they need. I'd say that the way we've proactively looked to deal with that is really just dedicating specific time to holistically run through our restaurant teams and from top to bottom, go through each one and each leadership team within that restaurant and say, okay, is this person a high potential candidate? Not just a high potential general manager, but a high potential team lead, a high potential trainer, a high potential frontline employee. And do we need to be thinking about what kind of opportunities to give that person such that they can continue to take the next step in their career at Protein Bar and Kitchen? We are much better at carving out that time now than we were when we started. And I think that's gotten us to a much better place and allowed the higher performers to be moved along and the mid performers to be brought up and everyone to kind of see where they are on their path of development at Protein Bar.
So one framework for that I love, for those of y'all who have read The Wealthy Franchisee, is how Scott Greenberg describes mindset and skill set. And that has become a framework for us to explain to my franchisees how to train their people. And is it a skill set issue or is it a mindset issue? What I love about what you just said is that you're looking for folks how to maintain their mindset while also coaching them through their skill set. And it's not just a holistic view of like, you have a high mindset and you have a high skill set. It's in every part of their role. So for me, it's for my instructors who teach our classes, it's not just how they teach the class. It's how they gave their welcome to the room, how much cardio they created, how much they learned people's names, which is a huge thing for us in terms of building community. And do they have a high mindset about it? Like they really want to learn people's names, but they just need help with skill set. They need help learning how to be better at it. So that's a framework that I use at every level of our company with all of our workers, all my franchisees, everybody, to help assess and diagnose where they need support and development. And is it a mindset situation? And how do we keep them with a high mindset? Or is it really a skill set opportunity to teach them tactically how to do the things?
So Jamie and Jared, you guys just laid out what I would consider a pretty sophisticated feedback review process. How often are you doing that feedback and review with your employees? And tell us a little bit more about that. I do find that brands have a hard time kind of committing to that feedback process and following through with it. So I'd love to hear about how you've built that and or how often you go through that.
My team would probably tell you that I'm always late on doing the evaluations. We have a formal process that we do once a year. And I'd say if that's the only process you're doing, that's not nearly enough. So the formal process a year is more involved because it involves getting 360 feedback from coworkers, from subordinates, from superiors, and trying to build a holistic picture of how someone performed over the course of the year. I'd say between those is much more frequent and less formal opportunities for feedback. And that's true of our headquarters team, but certainly true of the restaurants. I mean, it can happen. It can happen after a shift. It can happen after a week. But we look to encourage that informal process between managers. I'd say almost too frequently, right? Making sure you're constantly giving feedback. If you observe something that needs to be corrected, needs to be coached, like don't wait for a formal review opportunity. Take the opportunity and make sure they get the message, and then they can act on it immediately.
I don't really have anything to add to that. Similar, we have created a great culture of feedback. I ask for it. Even when I teach classes, I'm always like, give me some notes. What could I have done better? So we have just a culture of feedback because we've created a culture of care. Everyone cares a lot, and we want to help each other be their best, be their most confident self, and we use our community to do that. And I know it sound a little corny that I'm always like talking about my values, but that's just how we roll because it all comes back to how are we inspiring confidence in people and how are we building and strengthening our community.
Awesome, thank you. Charles, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. One of the things that you mentioned in our conversation, which I found really interesting, was through your interview process. Tell us more about how you use your employees in your interview process, and I'd love for you to share kind of what some of the challenges of that has been for you in the organization that you run.
Well, I guess the challenge is if you're at a moment where culture is not strong, that's dangerous, right? And so that's kind of the pressure or the test on the leadership side that it's got to be there because that's always going to be a part of the process. Mm-hmm. So it's like a restaurant having an open kitchen. It's going to have to be clean, right? And that's kind of that commitment that you make. So we always involve current members to be part of the interview process. It's kind of a welcoming part. It also allows them to talk to that individual, and they're kind of getting something more than just what's being said. And it's kind of that simple, you know?
Well, and those employees have a vote of whether or not that person gets hired, right?
I mean, yes and no. That's the other part is for our leaderships, it's constant improvement on who they would put in front of those employees for them to talk to, right? And that's, there's a balance between all of that. No, they don't get the say if we're going to hire, but if there's a lot of feedback, then you shouldn't. And then the leadership needs to really regroup saying, who are you bringing in the organization, right?
Yeah, no, I love that.
I want to talk about interviewing for a second because Gen Z knows how to interview. You learn how to interview on TikTok. It's not that hard. They teach you literally, you can go on TikTok and do interviewing tips. But what they're not as prepared for, in my experience, are the follow-up questions. So I really coach my team to get really good at the, you said this, tell me more about that. When you say this, what do you mean? So, and going specific to situations on their or things on their resume. So in your role at X, tell me a time that you were challenged, like not just in general. And if you're an interviewer and you're doing most of the talking, explaining the role, you're not running the interview right. So I would just say, as an interviewer, go on TikTok and see what they're watching so that you can suss that out. And I'm not opposed to them watching it for their own confidence. I think it's great that young people have so many great interview resources now. I do. But I think as an interviewer, you have a responsibility to push them and ask those follow-up questions that they may not have done TikTok prep for.
No, yeah, I like that.
I think that's very true. The other part to it is now that everybody has access to information, anyone that comes in has all these ideas in their head. But the commonality is that they haven't been able to organize those thoughts all that well because they're so scattered between different platforms and everything. And so I think where you take someone that has a lot of thoughts in their head, but they don't have any intention, they're not sure exactly what they're really looking for. That's where the organization can really seize the moment with recruiting in environments that are kind of tough to recruit. You might be bringing someone in that isn't going to answer that follow-up question that great, but if the culture's strong and you're able to clearly say, this is exactly what we do, and this is exactly how we do it, you can kind of re-engineer their thoughts on what it is to be in a workplace. And that, to me, is what's cool because an organization, we've got roughly 320 employees. There's a lot of talent in there. We have to mine that talent, right? And so it's an opportunity. And so that's the stuff that kind of gives me goosebumps is when you bring someone in that doesn't exactly have all the pieces put together on what it means to do well in an organization. And the proverbial river is like running fast enough when they jump in, they have no choice but to go down with it. And that's what I think is pretty awesome.
Can I tell one more thing? I'm just going to. So I have this awesome thing that I created as my company has evolved and we've gotten bigger. I'm not on the front lines with franchisees as much anymore. So weird. Shout out all my founders that are just starting. There will be a day when you're like not training your franchisees. It's weird. But as I've been trying to go through my own identity and my brand and figuring out where I can best impact and where I can protect and grow the brand, one of the things I created was a mentorship program. And I fucking love this thing. It is so great. So what I do is I empower my franchisees to nominate one person from their staff that gets to be part. They go through an interview process, and they get to be in a 6-week cohort that I lead. And it's about 10 people. I've done 3 of them. We're in my 3rd season right now. And I get to know these people so well. They don't have to, be interested in working at Diva Dance HQ at any point. They don't have to be interested in becoming a franchise owner, although 2 have now become franchise owners from my program, which is awesome. But what they do is they then go back and they're better leaders for their owners. So in that process, it's so much better than even an interview. And I've hired one person full time to be part of my HQ team. It's an awesome program, and it doesn't take me. It's the ROI on my time is massive that I spend on this. First of all, I enjoy it. I love coaching and mentoring and developing people. But again, I send them back to their units to be better leaders, which hopefully drives more revenue for my owner, a better experience for everybody. It's just beautiful. And I also build a talent pipeline. So that has been a really easy, and I've spent $0 other than my time, which is valuable, to cultivate that program. So just again, I try to give people tactical things that they can do when they go back.
Yeah. No, and 2 franchisees out of it. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's great. Jared, tell us a little bit about the referral program that you have at Protein Bar.
Sure. So when I joined Protein Bar in 2017, a long time ago now, I was not previously running HR. I came from the world of management consulting, and I worked at McDonald's. There was always an HR department who kind of handled that. And in coming into Protein Bar, thinking about the brand we wanted to build and where we wanted to take the company, looked at the recruiting activity we had done for years. And we had used all kinds of channels. We had used specialized recruiters to find general managers. We used Indeed. We used LinkedIn. We just everything under the sun. We had at some point spent money on it and pulled all that data together and said, okay, the people that we have in the stores, the best people, where have they tended to come from? And if it wasn't internal promotion, the vast majority, the highest ROI that we had by far was from employee referrals. And so we made a concerted effort to make that a major part of our recruiting strategy. We like to think that we create a really great working environment at Protein Bar and Kitchen. And if someone wants to bring their family member, their friend, if someone recommends bringing them in and helping them get a job, that's kind of a win-win-win situation because we're all made better. And an existing employee knows the system, knows the culture, knows what we want to create and what we're trying to build, and they can self-select the people who are going to succeed in that. So we've had sisters, we've had mother-daughter, father-son, husband-wife. Like a lot of referrals have come to build different members of our restaurant teams, and it's been really effective. So we started, I guess, to get more tactical with it, incentivizing it, creating referral bonus programs at different levels for team members, for team leads, for general managers. And once that person's been there for a while, the employee who's brought that person in gets a material bonus.
Tactically, just question about this. How do you operationalize that? Like, how do you track it? What system do you use?
So we're big on Excel. It's not a robust system with 15 units. We can kind of do that, but through our HR platform, you can kind of say, no, it's referred by, when were they referred, when did they start, and so obviously someone has to stick around for a while for the bonus to activate, but it becomes part of our HRIS.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. So tell me, as you know, part of this panel, right, is about hiring superstar employees in addition to cultivating them in-house. We talked a lot about building up your brand and your culture, which then attracts those superstar employees, right? What are some other ways that you are actively recruiting for your positions? You mentioned all of the normal tools, LinkedIn, Indeed. What are you guys finding success with, and any hot tips on how to attract more folks into your brand?
I mean, internally, we're now getting to a place where it's so weird, where some people who are part of our brand, like as a client, it's like their dream job to work at Diva Dance HQ, which is fucking crazy to me, but awesome. And so I literally, we just put it out on all of our own socials, and like clients will see it in different of our markets, and they freak out. They lose their mind that they could work at Diva Dance HQ, which is so awesome. A little bit challenging when you have to like tell them they didn't get the role, but we have a system for that. It's all good. But just within, we also kind of romanticize working for Diva Dance.
Okay.
We do. And we tell that story. We tell the story through content that, through Reels and TikToks about like how great it is to be part of the Diva Dance HQ team, but also like how great it is, and the lifestyle you have, and like the people you get to be part of, and the lives you get to change by working for one of my franchisees. So that's something I think you have a responsibility as a franchisor to create those tools that tell the story on behalf of your franchisees for why people should want to work for your brand. And so that has been hugely impactful for us.
And to build on what I had said before, talking about our referral program, I think one of the other things we can do is just being active in the community and building relationships with people, because you never know when someone might decide, hey, I'm looking for a role. So if we tell our team members, if you're ever out there in the world, there's lots of restaurants, there's lots of concepts, there's lots of non-restaurants where there are people with the right attitude about hospitality and being a fast sweeper. And so if you meet someone who you think might be a great fit, maybe they're not looking for a role, but build that relationship, keep that channel of communication open, because you never know when someone might become on the market.
Yeah, love that.
I mean, we use the normal things like Indeed. I guess one thing I could point to, like specific, like, and point to, like in our carpet cleaning company, every so often we'll have like a slew of or applicants that come in, and it's typically from gas stations or convenience stores where our technicians stop. And the feedback is they look like they like what they're doing. I asked them about it. They said they love it. So it comes again back to that culture and that promotion that comes from within. And it's just this idea that they want to be a part of that. And so they come to check it out. Then they find out the interview process is very similar to what they said. It's validation all the way through. So I mean, that's not overly unique, but that's just something that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
One other quick tactical thing is because our mission is to change lives, and so we really empower our folks on the ground that work for my franchisees to know that you are changing lives. You're not just a dance instructor. You're not just a membership salesperson. You're a life changer. And so we created these keychains that say life changer, and we give them to them, which again, I know sounds corny, but people love that. Like, they're proud of it. They're proud that they change lives. They're proud that they have an direct impact on people, improving people's lives. And so we have, again, kind of tell that story. We reinforce, that's the word I was looking for. We reinforce that narrative for all of our workers. And you are a life changer, and here's a keychain to prove it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because what Jamie mentioned, you can create all of the content in the world and get it out there, but if you're not going to follow through with it in your location, it's going to fall flat and you're going to have churn. And so, while you've shared these tactics, it's also obvious that all three of you guys have built a values-based company that really lives it every single day, which is what keeps superstars at your organizations.
One other tactical thing for those of y'all who use Slack. So all of our markets have a Slack workspace, and in there they have a community celebration channel. That when something great happens, you post about it. It's just, that's our culture. When we have new members, we celebrate them. When someone posts a 5-star or positive Google review, we celebrate that. We just celebrate, like, we love to pop bottles at my brand. So we pop booties and bottles, that's what we do. And so popping, celebrating, and we refer to our classes as a champagne quality class. So, all the things that you weave into your brand. I mean, I have a very fun brand, it's just inherent to who we are. But you can find the fun in your brand. You can find the narrative and the story in your brand and be able to personify that to your workers. No matter what your concept is, you can find the fun and find the narrative and draw that to your values and help people feel emotionally connected and invested.
Yep, awesome. So I have one more question for you guys. If I were an employee who wanted to work for you, being inspired by the culture that you have created, what are some things that I could do to stand out or impress you? Maybe not through the interview process, but just, by, being around.
I honestly, I think showing a passion for the brand and why you want to be there. It's just caring about the concept that you want to work for. It separates you from the vast majority of people that are out there. One of the questions we always like to ask in interviews is what do you want on our menu? What do you want to try? And we'll give them something when they come in for their interview. And you'd be shocked at the number of people who have no idea what we sell. We've got a pretty big menu. I'm not saying it's an easy decision, but you could, if someone has done research and actually knows, I get the perk shake. I'd love to have one of those. That goes a long way to signaling that you're serious and you know a little bit about this company. And I think it's consistent with what you were saying about TikTok, getting the expertise on answering interview questions. You can get that kind of expertise, but if someone asks you what do you want from the menu, that you're not going to know that on TikTok. You will have had to think about protein bar in this case.
Yeah.
For us, it's pretty easy. I think if their moral compass, if we can see that it's pointing generally in the same direction of ours, then it comes down to skill set, training and developing, and will they adhere or will they not? And the amazing part is most people will. People don't generally go to an interview because they don't want to work, right? We think that's the case, but it's not really true. It's just there becomes a disconnect in what their expectations are and what's happening in the workplace, and the demand on what you will accept or not as the employer. And it's just like a pro team, right? They have high expectations and they demand a lot, and we do too, but we love on them just as much, right? And the love comes from development and coaching and pouring into them. So often we hear people inside our organization, after they've been with us, say 6 months, 8 months, say, this has actually kind of changed my personal life too. And it's like, well, leadership is not just in the workplace. It flows through. While we don't really talk about the home a whole lot, they take that back and they do it. And as they talk to other coworkers, they realize their life isn't a shit show. And it's like, that's interesting. I want to be around that. And that's the stuff that creates that loyalty that for them to want to stay. And then, as a franchisee, the next important thing is we have to keep growing, because when we say that we're going to have opportunities for them to come up, we've got to actually create that. But I think one thing, a little bit of a pivot, but one thing that has been really awesome for us is because it really comes down to, as I mentioned earlier, you've got over 300 employees that there's a lot of great talent just hidden in there. How do you get that? Well, for one, we really make sure that like our area managers and the leaders that are in between us and the stores, they really understand and they feel comfortable with the idea that finding someone to replace them is a total good thing, right? Not a bad thing. And that you hear that all the time at conferences, and then you have to go back and actually put that in reality, and sometimes there's a disconnect there. If you can really create that culture, and that's partly by the habits of, are you growing, to where they can see that pathway. And the other part is always kind of having that same feeling that I was describing in the very beginning there, where it's like the fear was I was actually going to have to do it. Well, especially like in a district manager role or area manager role, the more training, the more developed you have someone that can do it, kind of keeps you away from actually having to go into that unit itself. And so then it's like, well, then how do you find the talent? How do you know? And I think there was a question earlier about mistakes that were made. I would say, the early mistakes that I made were that I would promote people that, did a good job, but they weren't the right person for that role. They thought they were, I thought I was, or I thought they were too. And then as I really started to understand it, they were good at the job, but they didn't have really any passion for it. It just was something that was naturally good to them. And I think a lot of people move into roles that they are pretty good at because we want to do things that we feel like we're good at. So they move to that. But if they were really to be able to be open with themselves and say, okay, look, I have 0 bills, I have no liability. So if that was the case, what would I really do? What do I want to do? A lot of times that's a very different answer than what they're actually doing. And so the essence is, can you help people inside the organization figure that out? So then they can go into a role that they are good at and they have passion for. And even if they have passion for it, they may not be amazing yet, but they'll get there because of that. And so that all comes from relationships. And, relationships, they develop at the speed of vulnerability. And so that comes down to, are you having those conversations as the leader? Are you talking to that manager and letting them know, here's where some mistakes that I made, and getting that chance to open up and really getting to the root of the issue? Because strong teams aren't afraid to talk about the things that they're deficient in, because they know that I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep fighting to get better. And when everyone knows that, the leadership team around is like, it's all good that you're not good at that. So how do we go forward from here? And really develop that. And so those are the things that make getting up and going and doing this every day awesome, because it's like, unless you're going to be vulnerable and talk about the things that you're not good at, you're not going to get good at it. And when you can have an environment where it's okay and it's not just a pity fest, it's really constructive, like, look, this is what I got to really work on. And then it's like, okay, let's get an action plan, figure it out. And then when they start doing it and you can celebrate it, it's, I don't know why else we do this. That's it, so.
Thank you.
I'll just add 2 short things to that. One is I have no shortage of people who are passionate about my brand and they want to be part of it. So we actually rely on assessments for people who are going to be part of Diva Dance HQ. I love the Enneagram. It's a very simple test. I like to hire 2s and 3s on the Enneagram, and 8s, 2, 3s, and 8s. Those are my favorite people. 3s are my achievers. They're gonna set a goal and they're gonna accomplish it. My 2s are my helpers. They're gonna help advance the organization. And 8s, I'm an 8. Well, we're just boss bitches, is what we are. And so, shout out to any 8s. I feel like Maddie, you might be an 8. I feel like. Okay. But so we have to use assessments. We have to use assessments to really understand. And then the second thing, a challenge I've faced is because I have no shortage of passion about my brand, I have to remind people it's a business, not a club. And so, you know, some of our organizations who are very culture driven and very lifestyle driven, and like people, they, you know, it for me almost was like a dance sorority, which I take as a compliment because sororities are awesome. It's still a business. And so that's something I have to really coach my owners on when they're hiring people, when they're elevating people. When I'm hiring people, I have to have that business acumen, or they have to be coached up to have it. They can't operate like it's a club.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much to this awesome panel for giving us your wisdom.
All right, thank you, everybody. Catherine, phenomenal job, crew. We are going to have you guys take pictures in a moment, but before I release everybody, nobody get up yet. 2 things for you guys. Number 1, you guys might be wondering what this next session is going to be about after this. It's the Mentor Roundtables. Can the mentors raise your hand if you are a mentor that you are listed on the agenda right now? Okay.